Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to all our viewers. I guess it might take a bit of time for people to come onto the live. And welcome to Matt Gabel, who's joining us for our inaugural Diamond Debate. And it's great to have you with us, Matt. Matt is from a family business. I think that's a fair description, called MJ Gabel, which I look at as a jewelry advisory firm. But maybe, Matt, you can give us a sentence or two on what you do before we get started with our discussion.
Sure, Avi. Yeah, that's true. We specialize specifically in the diamond jewelry side of things, both on the retail and trade side, buying and selling. So we kind of encompass all of the facets of the diamond jewelry side.
Perfect. And so this is a new series that we're launching today, essentially. I do want to just make sure that I have everything right on LinkedIn, that we can see what's going on. So if you just give me 1 second, and I think that should be fine. Or the technical. Sorry, there was a technical glitch. Okay. All right, so let's get started. Firstly, I want to thank our sponsors, Sarine Technology. Sarine, for over 35 years, Sarine has asked the industry the big questions, providing advanced AI technology to drive the diamond sector forward, imagining a more efficient and more innovative industry is central to Sarine's DNA and essential to long-term growth across the entire diamond ecosystem. So thank you to Sarine for sponsoring or for supporting these discussions, which we hope to have every week on a Tuesday at the same time. So Matt, the burning question is how relevant is the natural diamond product to the younger generation, and that's something I think a lot of people in the industry are grappling with. And I'll ask you, what do you think? Have natural diamonds lost the Gen Z? Have they lost the younger generation?
I don't think it's been lost, but I think it's definitely challenged. What we've seen is obviously lab-grown diamonds have become Gen Z's default option for many purchases, and that's obviously primarily because they're just a better match for the younger buyers, unfortunately. And the priorities on sustainability, price, and customization obviously plays a role in that.
Right. Is it all just about price? Or is it let's start with this. Is it a phase? Because it can be argued that it's kind of the new kid in town, and not all is lost. That there are virtues about which I'll argue as we get into the discussion. That the natural diamond industry has an advantage over lab grown.
I agree that the natural diamond has an advantage, but maybe the messaging on the natural side isn't really getting to the Gen Zers, because they're not understanding the same message that older generations understand on the natural diamonds, and they're seeing, I guess, more benefits to the lab growns. Not all Gen Zers. I mean, we do see some, how do I say, wealthier clients of ours, or where money really isn't an object or a problem. They will tend to buy natural. There's Gen Zers like to shop online. A lot of the naturals and labs are available online. The price points very different. You're talking 60 to 70% different. But there's, again, not lost. It's challenged for sure. The question is, how do we get it back?
Well, it feels like it's coming back though, and this is me as sort of an analyst that's not in the field and not selling directly to consumers, but there is this kind of feeling that there's been a sort of a bell curve that lab grown has been on, and that natural diamonds is at least starting to take a more proactive approach to its messaging, and that those younger consumers are hopefully that it's resonating with them.
I don't want to disagree. I don't know if they're seeing it yet. We're not seeing it on our end. I'm actually seeing more of the older generation now starting to contemplate a purchase on the lab side, which doesn't help the cause, right?
Well, that suggests that it's all about price. Then that's
well, yes, yeah, and the older generation's argument still is, well, a natural diamond does hold its value, and I mean that's a true statement. We both can agree. Versus a lab, which have hit bottom, in my opinion, a natural diamond for sure holds its value much better than a lab-grown diamond.
But then, are they buying it for value? In terms of, in other words, are they seeing the long-term value? Is that something that that consumers are looking at?
The Gen Zers?
Well, starting with Gen Z, but it seems that the older generation, if they're starting to move away from natural, then then the question applies to them as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily. I mean, price, I'm sure, plays a role in that, but it's so easy and so inexpensive to pick a piece, whether it be a diamond bracelet or a pair of studs. We're not seeing the older generation dive into the engagement side or the bridal side. It's usually just fashion jewelry, bracelets and necklaces and studs. I mean, you can pick up a pair of diamond studs that are a substantial size, fairly inexpensive, in my opinion, being in the diamond business, for studs. So I think the draw there is right. Like somebody leaping into a 2-carat each ear, 4 carats total weight. They don't necessarily know if they're going to love them on their ear, but they're willing to kind of take that risk because it's such a low entry price point. But would they spend the same amount of money if they were natural 4-carat studs, right? Probably not. So it's accessible. It's easy. It's not that expensive now. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, when lab-grown diamond prices were still high, that we didn't see a lot of that. We didn't see a lot of upgrades and trade-ins that we're seeing now that the prices have come down. And I mean, talk about the diamond market as a whole. Natural diamonds have never devalued or gone up that high in value in that short a period of time. We're talking 5 years from lab grown starting at $2,500 a carat when they first got introduced. Now they're extremely low comparative to their entry point 5-6 years ago.
So does that not set off alarm bells for consumers? That they're not buying a valuable product.
Right.
There's
no there's no legend there. There's no heritage there, right? There's no storytelling anymore when you get into diamond labs versus natural. That's really all gone. It's just it's all about size, or maybe we touched on this the other day when we talked social media. I don't know if that plays a big role in it, because a lot of the famous people out there are spending budget's really unlimited when they're walking around with 4, 5, 6, 7-carat diamonds on their fingers. I mean, engagement, and maybe the younger generation wants that same size, but they can't afford 6 figures. And I don't have that personality, so I couldn't tell you.
I look at it from a different point of view. That social media element of it. That people, you take the famous case this year has been the Taylor Swift engagement ring, and that was very sort of intentionally natural, a natural diamond. And so I think that message, not that people know that's out of their universe, their price range and their budgets, but the message was, I think, resonated, that it was it had a story to it. It had the the natural authenticity
It
that
did.
came with it. And so I don't think people would look at that and say, or yet I don't think younger consumers would look at that and say, I want that same diamond, and if I can get it as a synthetic, that's fine. I think they saw it more as that, this star, Taylor Swift is buying natural, and so I want to emulate that. Is
So
that a bit idealistic?
interesting. So days after that happened, on one of my channels that I belong to, it's the largest group of jewelers on. It's on Facebook. It's JHJ, which I'm sure maybe you've heard of it.
Yeah, sure.
There were hundreds of posts on, and that's just a jewelers community, with requests to produce that identical ring in lab, and one of the suppliers on there could not keep them in stock.
In lab.
In
That's
lab.
very disappointing to hear.
It's very disappointing. They literally created that ring in like 36 hours in lab and started selling them immediately, and everybody wanted them. And that's what's so upsetting about it, is right, like you take a beautiful piece like a Harry Winston or a Cartier or Tiffany or Van Cleef. That's where the customization with the younger Gen Z or younger generation, it's affordable now. They can create the exact same thing in lab, unfortunately, and it's extremely affordable. And that's we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, the one storyline that I enjoyed from that whole episode was that it showed the imperfections of natural diamonds,
Yes.
and that's becoming, and that has become a selling point.
Yes.
That lab grown has become the ultimate sort of commoditized generic product that can be recreated in very narrow, near perfection sort of parameters. And here you have a sort of vintagey, imperfect type of stone, with its inclusions, with its, that is desired. And so it was almost like there was I forget the guy's name, who has an Instagram channel on explaining different business developments, and he did a great piece on this. That it's kind of, lab grown has commoditized the deflawless, and
Yes.
so it's brought in value for inclusions. It's brought, it's shown that you have this sort of diamond that's not deflawless, that has its own personality and its own uniqueness that's right for you, and that's what's resonates. That's what can resonate or should resonate with younger consumers.
Yes, back prior to lab growns, when we were consulting with clients about their diamond, we explained the natural inclusions and diamond fluorescence and the millimeter measurements is a fingerprint that no other diamond on the planet basically can be duplicated to your diamond, whether 4.5 carat, X millimeter depth, width, slight fluorescence, SI1. Here's where the inclusions are, right? Like, that's what made that diamond unique and rare, is there's no other diamond probably on the planet that matches where the inclusions are, what type of inclusions there are, the millimeter measurements, right? But with lab grown, everything's colorless, everything's VVS or VS. They're all pretty much cut to ideal or excellent measurements. So, right, it's terrible. And now even some of the fluorescents are being thrown around in certain channels that, buy a fluorescent stone because it's different from everybody else. And, as you know, in the trade, a lot of people frown upon fluorescence, but now that's starting to come out a little bit, just like the younger generation was doing those. I forget what they're called, but they're like completely I2s, I3s. And there was a phase there that designers were creating pieces with these
Salt and pepper.
Yes, salt and pepper. Yeah. Yes, we didn't do much in that because I don't stray into that direction. only because, of course, I feel that the marketplace was overcharging for what they were getting, like the chocolate diamond, I feel. But yes, it's the same kind of thing. And it's funny how that phase kind of came and went, but now lab grown is another right phase. I think you called it earlier in the conversation. Is it really a phase? And it'd be interesting to see where that ends up.
Well, I mean, JCK wrote a piece last week, I think, expressing that that lab grown is now mainstream, and so what's the next phase, which would be the counter argument to it, and I think it is. I don't think it is a phase. I think it's there. It's part of the market. It's just a question of how natural diamonds responds and claims its space, so that there is some sort of a segmentation of the market, or bifurcation of the market, as everyone kind of theorized that would happen, but I'm not sure really has, or really will. So it's what happens next, and the that I think that story of the uniqueness of each diamond should resonate with consumers, and particularly with younger consumers, because what I'm seeing is that through all the noise that we have on social media, and that whole world that that younger people have grown up with, they want to stand out, and they want to express their uniqueness, and that includes within the diamond and jewelry space, and so I think there is a play there for natural diamonds to grab hold of that sentiment.
I think you're onto something, right? So what you're basically saying that I think the younger generation is missing, right? How unique and rare natural diamonds are, and that's what they should be concentrating on, is right how if they continue down the path with the lab growns, they're going to be just like everybody else. There is going to be no rarity there. They're not going to separate themselves from anybody. And I think that's where you're going towards that. Although a natural diamond, you're actually separating yourself from the herd and saying, I've got something that's better valued, hold its value, it's unique, it took millions of years to create. And I think that they're not seeing it now, but I agree with your statement. And ironically, as you were talking too, I'm not sure in your neck of the woods where you are how popular lab growns are, but I know in Canada, they're like slowly catching up. A year or two ago, it wasn't that popular in Canada. And it still may be. The US market is huge with lab growns, and I'm not sure about other parts of the country, but I know here it's pretty large. But I know other parts of the country, they're just catching up now. There was still value on the natural market.
Well, I think there are some, when we talk internationally, there are some interesting markets to watch. I think India will be a very interesting case study for lab grown, because it's got such a rich jewelry heritage, and such a rich and it's the growth market within the natural diamond space at a consumer level. But I think there's also sort of like a culture of sort of going price point, and so I think that's something to watch. But I think what's interesting in the United States is, I don't know, I'm a little surprised at what you say, that it's kind of pocketed, that it's not that it's not sort of a nationwide thing. Is it a big city thing? Is that where synthetics has catched on?
Yeah, Americans may be just big consumers. I mean, I think we've got a serious issue with just needing things and buying stuff that we don't need. We've got storage units and facilities all over this country to store our stuff we don't use. Like it's a problem. And when I talked to, it was a cutter, as a matter of fact, in Canada, we were doing some work, and I'm always curious when I talk to other tradesmen in the parts of the country that they're in, what it looks like. And yeah, as of a couple years ago, there it really wasn't an issue. Um, Now I haven't spoke with him since, but I'm curious to see what the Canadian market looks like in the lab growns and why the US took hold of this thing and ran with it. I don't know if it's the need to, right, have the, I wouldn't say the best, right? But like exotic cars or BMWs and Mercedes, a lot of the younger generations are driving those where when I was growing up, I couldn't afford it and it was not within reach. So I'm wondering if, right, that generation is, these things are now in reach, even though they're not natural. But I would love to hear what other parts of the country are seeing or parts of the globe are seeing as far as the lab growns versus natural dilemma that we have going on.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean the question that we sort of posed as the headline for this debate wasn't necessarily a lab grown question. It's, it's what Gen, it's whether Gen Z are interested in natural diamonds, and that can be, the I guess the question could be, do they prefer to, everyone talks about the experience economy, and people are spending more than they used to on experiences, especially having come out of COVID now, you know. Um, and so it's that, but the question naturally, with us in the industry, it naturally directs itself to the synthetic or lab grown question. I think, when you look at the question of jewelry or product versus experience, I'm not that worried, because I think I do see, or I do not. I do see jewelry sort of resonating very strongly as a broader category with younger consumers. People are interested in that, in the aesthetic of jewelry as a general product. And so I think, so yeah, so that's, I guess this is a bit of a disclaimer, about why we're talking, why we've directed it towards lab grown, because it hits the question of price point versus value. And
Yes. Yeah.
and I think, I think that there's a point where consumers are going to shift back to value. That they've cottoned onto the price point, they've bought into the lab grown, and it's made it an accessible product. But ultimately, and particularly in bridal, and this is, and I say this with a caveat that we've been proved wrong so far, because
Right.
bridal has lost a big chunk of the
Yes.
market. But I was I'll never forget it. But I think must have been at the Vegas show maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where I had this conversation with the wholesaler, and he said he's not worried about lab grown. Why? Because you cannot underestimate the expectation of the American bride, and that's what he said to me. And I'm not sure if that was, and I always feel that that's true. There must be some expectation,
Yeah.
um, um,
Sure.
but you tell me, you know,
Yeah. Of course.
does that still hold? It's
I mean, there's another factor, and there's that whole sustainability thing, right? The argument in the beginning with lab growns versus naturals. Oh my God, it's so much easier to, less environmental impact. And I think that argument can go both ways. But yeah, the brides, I mean, they're gonna want what they're gonna want, and there is an expectation. Not all the time, but it's
Well,
stronger.
what is the expectation for something natural and real, or is it a price that they expect they
Size. It's keeping up with their friends and their friends group and what they have. I cannot tell you how many times a man will come in and say all her friends have got like 2 carats or more, and I have to at least get something close to that, which immediately pushes them into the lab grown because the price point at 20s mid-20s, late 20s, that kind of stone natural is almost the price of a new car or close to a new car. So when they look at that price point and like, oh boy, geez, okay. Then the question they typically was, what about lab? We don't normally introduce that. That's normally brought, what about lab? Well, certainly, and it only costs you 20% of that basically. And they don't want to upset their bride.
Well, right. I thought
Right?
the expectation was on the man, that the bride expected the man to spend a certain amount.
Gone.
You
It's
know,
gone. Yeah, we haven't seen, it's gone. It's more about how they look in front of other people and what the world sees, not not the price point.
right. Well, there was an interesting anecdote from a retailer who I spoke to about a year ago, who does both, but in separate stores. So
Ah,
she has a separate store for her lab grown line, whatever, and then her traditional natural diamond and other jewelry, And she made some interesting observations um about the type of customer that comes into each store. And so the lab grown was more female self purchases, and but on the bridal side, the couple would come in together, and there wasn't this sort of and they would make the decision together. And right at the end, she would pull back, and he'd
yeah,
pull out the credit card. Whereas in the natural diamond store, it was more the traditional guy comes in fishing around, and
agreed.
and does a bit of guesswork, I
I
guess.
would agree with that. Yeah,
Um,
yes.
and but I think maybe that's something that we can try and understand about the younger consumers. They're not shopping in the same way as previous generations.
I think that's because the man's almost asking permission or wants the woman's approval to go in the lab direction. Because I would almost agree with whoever you talk to, when it's less likely we'll see a woman accompanying a man coming in to buy a natural than a man contemplating a lab. I would agree with that. Yes, because a natural, you can't go wrong, right? Like, what is she going to say? But
It's
with a
too
lab
small.
grown,
It's I don't know. The design sucks.
well, yeah, but
You
yeah,
know,
I mean, we see that maybe once, twice a year that the man, you know, jumped the gun and maybe just got something that he felt was right and she hated it, but maybe we repurposed a diamond and built something else for it. That does happen. It's rare, but it does happen. Um, and there are scenarios where they'll come together and buy natural, but I would agree it would lean more towards the lab side. And I we touched on this too. It'd be interesting to get a panel together of each, decade of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 50-year-olds, and ask them a lot of these questions. What would they choose? Why would they choose it? What's important to them? Because that's going to help the retail market. That's going to help the natural diamond market come back and find, not that it doesn't have its spot. It does. It always has. I mean, the diamond market's been untouched for decades, literally decades. It's been the most stable market that I've ever been in. I mean, they move and shift a little bit, but not to the degree they have in the past 5 years. So I'm for natural diamonds. I think there's a place for lab growns in certain scenarios. But yeah, I'd love to see the strength of naturals come back. I
well,
think there's a
what does the natural diamond industry have to do to resonate with, or to take back that market share? Because the
yeah,
focus has been very much on the origin story, the provenance of
yeah.
the stone. And does that does that
I
fly?
don't think it resonates with the younger. I don't think I don't think they're buying into it. And that's been the thing for the story and the legacy and the symbolism of the whole thing, that's been around forever, and the older generation understands that. I don't know what the message has to be, and I think that's where getting a panel together might help us paint a clearer picture on what we need to do to kind of.
It's a great idea. We'll see as this series evolves, and if we can find the right people, because obviously there are, it's subjective at every age group.
Yes.
But I like the idea of imperfection, the imperfection of
Sure.
of
rarity,
of naturally. I don't think it's a question of rarity necessarily. But that you have this, the GIA stopped. Well, the GIA stopped issuing the grading reports
for labs,
the 4Cs for
I saw that,
for lab grown. Why? Because they said the majority of those synthetic stones are coming in, are being produced at a very narrow color clarity range.
Yeah.
And that to me says, and it comes back to the Taylor Swift story, that there are, that D flawless is not the ideal anymore. It's the uniqueness of your VS2, G color stone that's beautiful and has a beautiful design and has a backstory to it. But there's an imperfection that matches your imperfections that are to be celebrated. And I think there's something there that can be tapped into, and I think it may not resonate now with younger consumers, but I think because we are so inundated with all this, the noise of of the news cycle of social media, that it's going to swing back. It's going to swing back to a search for meaning.
I could see that. Avi, that's a really good point. I mean that. Right, because at what point is enough? And at what point is, and it's very noisy right now. I mean, everything you see. I have a Facebook group that I manage that sells goods to consumers, and when I first created the page, it was 75% natural, 25% lab, and now it's the other way around, because there's so much of it out there and it's so accessible and so cheap. Right. I'm wondering if at some point they're going to say, all right, everybody's got these things now. The rarity or the fact that they're different is they're no longer different. They're commonplace. And maybe you're right. Maybe they'll resort back to something that is one of one. And that's what you're saying is right. It's a G color VVS. It's one of one, really.
Yeah.
And maybe that might be the draw. And I hope that's the case. I honestly do. I really do.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think it needs to be a little intentional by the industry and from both sides. There's kind of this pick a side type of thing. It's kind of like the political landscape. You either for lab grown or you and against natural, or the other way around. And I say this more from the lab-grown side, where they need the synthetic products. They needs the natural diamond industry to succeed, because they can't bring down the whole. There needs to be a base from which lab-grown can feed off. It can't become the main product, and that's what I'm worried about, is that it becomes the majority.
If you were afraid of that, of it becoming the majority.
Yeah, I am. That would be a tipping point for me, and that's something that I am a little concerned about.
Yeah, sure.
And that's why I think that whole the whole messaging, whatever it is, needs to be intentional, but it needs to be intentional from the retail side, from the retail sector. You have these campaigns and these initiatives coming from the miners, from De Beers, etc. But it depends on that, on retail, and that's what it depends on. So
What do you think would be a good message for the younger generation?
I think I think you've got to bring back the sexiness of natural diamonds. It lost its sex appeal in a way, and I don't think synthetics is a very sexy product either, because it's a price point,
No, it's not. It's not a sexy product. You're right. Everybody. I mean, it's not a one of everybody has them. I mean, I can call a wholesaler right now, and I can have a 2 to a 5 carat delivered to my door, and it's going to be DEF color, VVS quality, and I can get them any day of the week. They're not sexy. You're right. It's to me they're I don't want to compare them like moissanite or CZ, but they're becoming very much like that. And it's I would have expected the time frame, for that to happen would have been 2 years from now, which we're already here. The cycle of this lab grown thing has happened very fast.
Yeah, and but I think we also shouldn't underestimate the role that the high end brands play in setting a bar for aspiration. And so you have I think that's where you do see the sex appeal of natural diamonds is
Yeah,
in
sure.
those higher end luxury
Yeah.
brands, and people do look at those products and say, I want that, and that's what I want to be able to afford at some point.
And I think that's a different class of buyers, of shoppers that are in that. And I'm sure, and you can correct me on this, that industry, the luxury side, has also taken kind of a beating over the past few years, and they're not as strong as they probably were pre.
Um, well, that's more of that's actually more the influence of China. When you look at the big luxury houses, the LVMHs, or the Richemonts, which owns Cartier, Van Cleef, those sort of brands. When they have taken a knock, it's been because of their exposure to the Chinese market. But I think they've actually had a good year. I think especially particular brands have had a good year on the jewelry side. But I don't think we should look at them as a separate market, because we should look at what they're doing and translate that
Yeah,
to
yeah,
more affordable natural diamonds.
yeah, agree.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
I'm just saying because we've noticed a difference from um, the secondary market, used secondary goods in the luxury brand, and we noticed a price decrease in the pieces that we were working with and what the market commanded for them. Um, that was like I was not expecting that. Usually, we would buy some of those pieces or sell them for clients, and would sell fairly fast. And we noticing them sitting longer, and we have to be much more competitive on price point, which was disappointing because those brands for us a lot of the time, those signed goods would
Yeah.
maintain and hold their value better than anything else in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's quite
So it was
interesting.
yeah, it
Okay.
was difficult to see that, and we're still in that position. I don't know. It'd be great to have it loosen up, but we've got some pieces that we just can't move that are signed goods for whatever reason, and the prices are lower than they've ever been. And I don't know if it's back to the customization of lab growns where they can create whatever they want for a fraction of the price. And there's wholesalers and manufacturers out there that are unethically creating the exact same piece and selling it because all they're thinking about is profit. And now
Yeah.
the lab
Yeah.
grown market's so competitive, they'll practically give them away because there's so much inventory, and it's crazy.
That's quite interesting. I mean, you don't have to name them, but are there specific like specific names that are not selling, or is that a general statement that you're referring to?
I would probably say I mean, all the major ones that you normally see mainstream. The two top ones obviously would be Cartier and Tiffany.
Yeah, yeah.
Tiffany, I think, is the most has struggled over that we've seen. We used to be able to we'd buy a Tiffany piece or consign it for a client, it would be gone within weeks. Now it's like several months because there's just a lot available. And I think there are some wholesalers out there, they may even be in manufacturers, they may be watching. No disrespect, but they're creating these pieces that look identical and marketing them as
Well, is it that, or is there like an oversupply of goods in the secondary market?
both.
You
Yeah.
know,
No, I take that back. Not there's always been an oversupply of recycled goods, always, but there's always been a place for them. And I think through this, when lab growns really started taking off, and especially with the tariffs, my wife and I just had this conversation not too long ago when the tariffs started happening. I told her, and there's a couple other professionals in the trade that said the same thing, that I felt that the secondary market or the used goods channel would then open up because it would be more affordable for people to buy used goods over new
yeah,
goods.
yeah,
And that's what I was expecting, is the Cartiers, the Tiffany's to be moving a little bit faster because the tariffs on the newer goods, but we just haven't seen that. So, and our used goods have always been stable. We've never, ever, ever had a problem with used goods. Now the prices are down.
interesting. I mean, just going back to our original topic, but are younger consumers looking at those signed goods as well? Is that a market that they're engaged with?
Yes, I think I think there's a lot of shoppers or brides, or I'll say little girls, that grow up knowing the Tiffany story or certain names. Mom's got the Cartier. You know what I mean? And it translates down to the children sometimes, that there's been lots of people that have come in that simply basically said, I have to have Cartier or I have to have a
Yeah,
Tiffany.
yeah,
Mom or grandma had one, and that's just the way that it is. And I think that plays a role into the natural side too. But there's always a small population that has to have those goods. And I mean, who wouldn't want a Tiffany engagement ring? I mean, seriously, the quality is great. The diamonds are always on point. I mean, who wouldn't want a Tiffany engagement ring?
yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. There's also the experience aspect of it.
Correct.
Like
But there's
I
love scenes too.
whenever I'm in New York, I go. That Fifth
Yeah.
Avenue store is a
Yeah.
tourist attraction for me.
Yes.
Um, and I'm not buying. So the
It's the
buying
experience.
experience there
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
another.
we did the same thing. We went and saw Harry Winston because we
Yeah,
represented hundreds of their pieces in the past, and it was just right, the experience. And I think even younger generation still wants that. But the problem with the experience model, though, that has all changed too now with the virtual and the e-retail. And I mean, that's become very competitive. And COVID opened that up where you can order a car now pretty much and have it. I have a friend who owns a fairly large company, and he orders his vehicles now, his company trucks, online, and they ship to him through a carrier. He doesn't need to go to the dealership. I
yeah,
mean,
that's crazy.
that's the world we live in. I mean,
Yeah.
the e-retail marketplace, Blue Nile, look at their numbers, skewed or different now, probably because of labs, which I think they had. I mean, all the major brands have to carry them now because everybody's asking for them.
Yeah, that online and e-commerce element is another area
Yes.
that the industry needs to look at, because that's where people are consuming. See
And
you see the growth, in the holiday season.
yes, right. We also have to do something with the wholesalers selling directly to the public, especially we've seen it a lot in the lab grown side, which has
Yeah,
driven
yeah,
prices way down, which we
yeah.
like to see.
That's a whole different
Yes.
debate,
Yeah.
because I think and one I think what one should have, because it speaks to the general contraction of the industries. It's too crowded. But
We're
as
seeing
I
it
said,
translate with the natural goods too, because a lot of these third generation wholesalers and jewelers are struggling, that they're really grasping at anything to make sales and to increase revenues and profits, because they're just, I mean, the competition with the e-retail and the brick and mortar is it's terrible. I mean, it's so cutthroat that they're willing to make such a small margin to make a sale, because the retail jewelers who weren't on board with the lab growns, who are now trying to catch up, have lost 25, 30, 40%. So there's that struggle there too. And I get everybody's in this industry is cutters. I mean, they're all not doing as well as we were 5-10 years ago. And the market's just gotten, it's unfortunate, because when I got into this business, it was a very difficult business to get into. It was a very difficult business to be accepted into. And once we got in, things were great, wonderful. And then lab growns came down the pipeline, and it really jumbled everything up.
Yeah, but I think when we look for for solutions, I think that providing that experience is also the key, and that's the competing product for to online.
Yeah.
But Matt, we got to wrap this up. It's been great. Thank you so much. I think we set a good bar for the rest of the for moving forward on these diamond debates, and it's been such a great pleasure to have you on. So thank you for being the guinea pig.
Pleasure is all mine. I truly appreciate the opportunity to have this one-on-one with you, Avi.
Me too. Thanks very much, and thanks to everyone watching and listening, and we'll post this online afterwards, so stay tuned for that if you missed it, and we'll see you next week. Thanks everyone, and see you then.